This is Becoming Inclusive from the Kaleidoscope Group, where we're thinking differently about diversity, equity, and inclusion for more empowered people at work. We're committed to real change, and that begins with real conversations. Welcome in.
Hi, I'm Reginald Ponder, and welcome to another episode of Becoming Inclusive. You know, I don't even need to tell you. I'm here with my co-host, Catherine Potts. Hey, Kat, how are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Before we introduce our guest this week, Kat, I have a bone to pick.
Oh, here we go.
Is that you have been picking the topics without me. And I feel like every week I should at least be able to pick the topics of our discussion. What's going on with that? I know they don't want to hear us talk about that, but I just had a little bone to pick there. But I do want to introduce.
You should feel. Oh no, I'm going to interject. You should feel empowered, Reggie, to come up. I am just living in a field of. I'm living in a field of empowerment. Join me.
I love it. I love it. And because I think last time we talked a little bit about unity. Let's unify here and welcome our guest, Jodi Matas. And Jodi is Jodi, I'm forgetting your title. So please, firstly, welcome and project manager director. There it is.
Marketing project director. Yep.
See, of the Kaleidoscope Group. And Jodi, we're really happy to have you on. I know it took a little twisting of the arm because you don't like to be front and center. But what you do for the Kaleidoscope Group is really, really important. And we thought that we could talk about it in the way in which it absolutely impacts diversity. A lot of folks think that that when you do a lot of project management, you work with a lot of tools, a lot of technology, all of that stuff. And people think when you do that, you actually solve some problems because technology is supposed to be agnostic. You know, it's supposed to work for everybody. And talking to you and Kat actually talking to you is that's actually not the case. And so we're going to get into that a lot. Kat, if you want to reframe it for us a little bit, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think just, the concept around putting people back into the idea of project management, because, everybody is different. So to assume that one way to get things done works for everybody is definitely not accurate.
No, it's not. Everybody has different working styles, right? What works for some may not work for others. Some people may prefer the project laid out in a project management tool. Other people might just say, put it on my calendar. Different team members may have different ways in which they work. And it's learning those working styles, but then it's also getting the folks on the team to make sure that they understand the goal. A lot of times too, projects are assigned to people like, oh, get this done. But there's this question like, well, why are we doing this and not working on this? And go ahead.
So before we get there though, Jodi, the problem that I see with this discussion is that as a manager, and I mean as a vice president of a division or organization, I don't have time to try to figure out everybody's style. That's why I got the tool. I got the tool so that we know you go into this tool, this is where you're going to find the workflows, this is where you're going to find your information. Go there and do that. Now you're telling me that from a diversity perspective that I need to have some sensitivity and some care to that.
The overall goal is obviously, there are systems and tools and different things in place for a reason, right? And the goal really is to get the folks, whoever's on the project team, to utilize those tools. But until they get to that place of comfort, if you're in the middle of a project, and say it's with people you haven't worked on a project with before, right? There's folks sometimes even inside KG. I've never worked with them on anything before, but I may now have to be involved in a project, or they may rely on me to, hey, this is what we'd like to get done. Can you project this out? They may never have used that project management tool. So I can't initially rely on them to just, here's this tool, go ahead and start using it, right? So there's also getting people to that place of comfort with utilizing technology and utilizing those tools. And you have to get them to that point before it can just automatically become an expectation. Does that make sense?
It does. Kat, you wanted to say something, but I have a burning question. So just go ahead and I'll jump
No,
back.
I'll let you go because you pointed out that I come up with all the topics. So I'll let you have this moment.
It makes sense. It makes sense. But so there's an age-old story. I think people tell it as a joke, but I'm not a joke teller, so I'm just going to tell it as a story. So there's the age-old story. There's a young salesperson, and that young salesperson has a manager, and the manager says, "Well, how did it go trying to talk to Jodi about this sell this stuff to Jodi?" And the young salesperson says, "I did everything I could. I mean, I texted, I emailed, I went to LinkedIn. I did everything I could to touch base with Jodi." And it says, "You did?" Say, "Oh yeah, I emailed her a couple of times. I even texted her. I even went on her social media. We just could not connect." And then the older guy says, "Well, did you call?" And the younger person, "Huh? Did you call them? Like, get on the phone and call them?" And they did not. So the reason I bring up that story is that for me, I like to talk to people. So Jodi, you send me all these emails and things I'm supposed to do, and I'm like, and what happens invariably is I call you. I call you and say, "Jodi, I don't even understand these 15 things. It's like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this." But it seems like that is problematic for organizations to have people not working within the project management system. Mm-hmm. Yes? No?
Yeah. That can be an issue. That absolutely can be an issue. And that's a comfort level a lot of people, even still to this day in 2022, have issue with technology.
Well, I think there's like aspects, right? Like aspects of a tool that probably are a little bit like putting someone's name in and their last name, like those are very simple things that I think it's not having too high of an expectation to expect people to be able to put in those things. I think where, that kind of then sort of evolves is, okay, how are we actually managing the project itself? So right. I think it's kind of like a tiered thing. Like there's certain things that it's like, yes, you should be able to put in the company name, right? Like you should be able to do those things. That's it's very obvious how to do that.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, beyond that, when it does become a little bit nuanced, that's where it's like you do, to the points that you both have made, like you do have to consider like what is going to work for this person and how can I get them to a place that would be where works for everybody and less on their own island, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to consider those things.
Yeah. So to your point too, Reg, when you were saying about, you'd call me, right? And even when we were using that project management tool that we don't use anymore, I was able to, but I was able to get you to a place of comfort with it, right? And I did. There were times where I'd say, "Well, did you check Basecamp?" Oh, well, I said it doesn't matter. I'm not advertising for Basecamp, but I'm just saying, did you check Basecamp? Did you check the tool? And you say, "Oh, you know what? You're right. Let me go check that." So sometimes there's even just that reminder, because sometimes people do have that itch to just pick up the phone and call right away without taking a minute to just stop and go and wait. "Oh, I'm supposed to check the tool," or "I'm supposed to check this," or "That's right, Jodi already sent this information over. Let me take a look at it first." So it's also guiding people, right, to getting any tool or any process or anything. We have to, as project managers, we have to try to help people make it a routine. Especially if it's a new thing.
You did a good job with that, actually, and I'm not just saying that here. I think you did do a good job with that, because you helped try to build some confidence with me in terms of trying to figure out how to use the tool and all of that. However, there is this thing that Kat, that you brought up at the beginning, that there are some different, and I think you said this as well, Jodi, there are different ways that people learn and different ways that people thrive. So from a project management perspective, how do you are there some ways to kind of incorporate that? Because it is absolutely true. There's some people are visual learners. I think, Kat, last time we had one podcast where it talked about how younger people actually prefer the non-human. And you even said that, you'd like to stay at home,
Tell me what to do and I'll get it done.
and get it done. So because there are these different ways of being effective, and because that's really what we want to make sure that people are at the end of the day, it's effective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
A big part of being a project manager is getting to know the learning styles of the team you're on. That's like a responsibility, I would say, right? So to your point, there are some people that are visual learners or, have to do everything hands-on, hey, I just need to do this 2 times and I'll get it. I need to do this. Just give me a couple of chances to do this hands-on.
Yeah.
Reggie. But then, Kat will say, well, just tell me where to look for the information and I'll figure it out, and she does. So you have to also accept that not everyone's like you, right? So you can throw something at me too, and once I do it a couple times, I'm fine. So as a project manager, you do have that responsibility to not just assume everybody's going to learn in the same way you do. Some people need more coaching. Some people need more guidance. Some people need you to walk it through them live. Stay on the phone with me while I do this. And then even getting into the project, and some folks aren't organized. So you'll oftentimes also work with people on a team where it's like, okay, you're clear, right? You have these 5 things to do. You have 2 weeks to do them. And about a week and a half in, I'm looking and I said, wow, they only have like 3 days left and they didn't do any of these 5 things, right? They didn't check those boxes. They didn't get those things done. So that can often be a frustration. But then I think also holding it as the head of the project, right? You also need to be real with those folks and call them out in real time and hold them accountable. If you don't do these 5 things, you're jeopardizing everyone else's role on this project, or you're jeopardizing the project or whatever. So I think it's not always just about the project. To your point, what we've been talking about, it is about the people.
Kat?
I mean, that for me, and like in terms of my past experiences, I've definitely been in situations, like to put some like experience behind it, where something's just here. This is how we do it this way. This is how we all do it here. This works for me and the 5 other people. And there's sometimes an expectation that it needs to work for me too. And then that has led me and put me in a position where I couldn't thrive, because it was like, this is how we do it. You have to do it this way. And then what happens too is I think the perception sometimes, depending on what type of project manager you are, is that, oh, this person's just not getting it. And that's where you do sometimes have that outcome of like, oh, people are being ineffective. Well, they're not being ineffective. It's that they just need to learn and know how to do this a different way. And let's look at how I'm delivering it to the person and what role am I playing as well in getting them there. Yes, the person should also take accountability and say, this is not working for me, right? I need to learn a different way. But that's not always received as openly as I think some people think that they're telling people it is.
I really like that you brought that point up, Kat, is that as you talk about empowerment, because you said that's the word that you used at the beginning there, empowerment, we should all be empowered to say, look, this is what works for me. This is how I can thrive. That type of thing. But you're absolutely right. If I have a system in place, it's been working, you come into my system and then all of a sudden you say, you say, well, I can't do it that way. I'm looking at you kind of sideways because everybody else got it this way. So, Jodi, where you helped me is that I'm wondering what's a manager, and I don't mean a project manager. I'm talking about what's that vice president, what's that middle manager to do when they find these type of situations. And you gave me one tip that I want to make sure that I like, is that you're saying that the project manager's job is to learn their people. And in doing so, that is where some flexibility can happen. Flexibility in how long it takes that person to adapt to the system, and flexibility on maybe that's not 100% that way if that person needs some type of augmentation. That's really what you're saying here, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can miss out on exceptional talent if you take that stubborn stance of, well, you're just going to have to do it because these 5 other people do. Do it this way. Sometimes I found, in a lot of cases, actually, when you explain to someone, like, say, using a system, right, like you're talking about, and this person, Kat, let's say it's you, and you're having a horrible time. I know these 5 other people do it this way, but I just can't. Sometimes it's really helpful for folks to understand the why behind something, why it's being done this way, and then it starts making things a little more clear as to, oh, okay, and now I'm getting it. Now I can jump on board. Now I can.
I love that too, Jodi, because when I understand, even though it doesn't work for me, but when I understand that it's tied into our sales system as well as tied into our compensation system, that the reason we're using this particular tool is not just for the A, B, C, and D, is that there's some I'm just making that up because I do know that happens. There's some integration here so that there might not be a lot of flexibility in changing the system, but there may be some flexibility in how we use the system or employ that system. Was that where you were going?
Yeah, part of it. Yeah. And then it's also, the why, right? Like, the why are we using the system? But then sometimes there's also a question around people grasping what the project itself is about. Like, why is this important, or what is this going to do for us if we get this done? What does this even mean? So really explain the whys behind those things. Because I'm really one of these people. I really am one of those people. If I'm given a project and somebody says, I always ask what the goal is. Let me start there, right? So if somebody says, we need to do these 4 things, and this is what we have to do, I say, well, what's the goal? What are we trying to get to? Why these 4 things? What is the goal? Because there may often be times too that I can make other suggestions, or say, well, it'd be it's in order to get there, we don't need to do these 20 things you're suggesting, as an example, right? We really only need to do these 10. And here's how we can achieve that. So understanding the goal is huge for the benefit of a great outcome on anything, right? If you have the goal first and then you work backwards and build out the project or whatever you're working on, it's usually more successful. And if everybody's on the same page with that too.
Yeah, I feel like also when you're trying to get buy-in for something, right? When you deploy something and people are like, oh gosh, another system, like why? Even subconsciously, there's a part of you that's like, I am not going to sign on to this. I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to whatever I have to do to appease at the very bottom, because why? Why? To your point, Jodi, it's like, why? And I think, again, we do discount a little bit how our subconscious actually affects our conscious behaviors. And I really think that even on a small scale, if you can explain, to Jodi's point, explain what it's going to do, how it's going to help the company, because at the end of the day, everybody at the company has the same goal, right? We all want to be successful. We want the company to be successful. So if that stays as the main pillar and that's what's supporting why you're using something, and you explain that why, then you're more likely to have people, even if they snail pace inch to it, get on board.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, what's great about this discussion are 2 things for me. One is that we are talking about how technology is not the end all be all. A lot of times we believe that that's the case. And we've talked about that in other areas, but I know today we're talking about it as it relates to project management, but it's not the end all be all. The second thing is that there are people involved. And sometimes we forget that there are people involved in the things that we do. And I think COVID, for some people, have said, because Kat, you have said it, I'm fine being at home. Reggie, you can send me a couple of emails. I'm good. I'm ready to go. But I'd be lying to you guys that for me, it's great to see both of you guys. It's great to interact with you guys more on a personal level than just having emails and systems and things of that nature. And I'm glad.
Well, Reggie, I'll call you up. I'll call you when I want to talk to you. Obviously, Jodi and I work closely. I work closely with both of you, so I talk to both of you a lot. But there is that thing, right? Like, I'm calling both of you too because I have a professional and like a personal relationship with you both, right? So that's different. If I only have professional, I don't know who I'm calling on the side the way that I call you too.
Yeah, but just the discussion here today to just talk about having those considerations and understanding, and not even, I love what you said here, Kat, not discounting someone saying that doesn't work for me. Now, we might have to get them there, like Jodi said, but don't discount why it doesn't. Because Jodi, you talked about the why. There's another why there as well. How come it doesn't work for you?
Yeah.
What are the things that are not making you as effective as you can be? Mm-hmm. And some of these systems, I think, are starting to think about that. How do we add chat to the system? How do we add maybe a video chat to the system? How do we add some of these other things that start to address some of the differences? And because that's really what we're talking about here, some of the differences that people bring to the workplace, is that it's just not always one size fits all. And I want to give both of you guys a chance to kind of close out, but I'll go with you first, Kat, and then we'll let Jodi close out our discussion today.
Yeah, I think also what can be damaging when you say, everybody else gets it and why don't you, is you're also narrowing the opportunity for innovation with someone that could also possibly have a better way of doing something. And so, you want to be careful about that as well, because just because 5-6 of you are cool with the way that it is does not mean it's the best way.
Really good point. Jodi,
you're missing. Yeah, you could be missing out on exceptional talent, and how do you know as well that those 5 people, they may be doing it, but they may hate it. They may be like,
that's true.
This is terrible. I'm just doing it because I was told to do it. So you're right. When you bring diversity, innovation, when you bring all that together, that's how you innovate, right? And so let's find a way that works for everyone. And you can't always find a way that works for everyone. I mean, let's be real. But you can do what you can. If you know you have the right talent, it's about working with that talent and getting to a place where you're all successful and can all feel like you can be successful.
Wow. Well, here we go again. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate both of you. And I said you guys. I've been trying to say you folks. So thank you folks, for being here. I really appreciate it. That is Catherine Potts, my co-host, and that is Jodi Matas. And I want to thank both of you for coming on the show again today. And this is Becoming Inclusive. I'm Reginald Ponder, and I'll see you folks next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Becoming Inclusive is presented by the Kaleidoscope Group, your full-service diversity, equity, and inclusion partner serving clients worldwide. Learn more and continue the conversation at kgdiversity.com.